Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So, this video can't be monetized. I can run the video, it's visible, but I used a bunch of little clips from Miss Marple, 1985. Because one of my viewers, there was this show that was pretty identical to Ketchupgate with Trump's fake, assassination attempt. Now, I could go back and try to trim the clips, but it's late. It's already 8 o'clock and I'm kind of exhausted. So this has to be a member-supported video. If 100 people give $1 or whatever, $2 or whatever it is, it'll be, it'll be, it'll pay for itself. Anyways, that's my big announcement. Here's the video. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I had to spell check the same word or correct the same word twice, which is the first time. Oftentimes I misspell something in the title. And by the time I'm done with the video, I'm sort of just over the whole thing. And, oftentimes it's the spell checks right there on YouTube. I just don't pay attention. But, people and my wife will let me know so I can correct the thing. Which is, one of the things, like, I don't take that as a complaint or criticism. It's helpful. It's something that I can correct. And, I have this tendency, and I'm dyslexic. And, I get, like I said, I don't feel like maybe being burnt out. I'm just kind of done with the video, and oftentimes the title is misspelled. And so someone was kind of dickish about it. They were like, correct the title. And it was, I misspelled definitely. So YouTube does a spell check, and I changed it to defiantly. And then, which my wife said to me this morning, and she'll send me a screenshot of the thing, and from actually last night, but I hadn't looked at it. Not sure if your title is spelled correctly, definitely versus defiantly versus definitely. So that was a first. But anyways, I have a bunch of comments to get to, and then I want to get to the video. There's a movie somebody recommended, and it's to do with the Trump piece. Miss Marple predicted Trump stole his storyline from Miss Marple. And, there's a Miss Marple. It's Agatha Christie, Miss Marple character. I used to occasionally watch that show with my ex years ago. The new one. This is even older than that. Like an old show from, England. And there was an episode where there's a Ketchupgate. We'll get to that. And then Trump, there's a lot to do with Israel. We're going to get to that today. But, Trump's an absolute... what they're doing now is what the Democrats said he was going to do. Like, I never thought it would be this bad. They didn't think it was going to be this bad. Like, he's, he is a grifter, and I think he kind of is aware that he's a grifter, but I think he's a grifter who now believes that he's actually, he's a loser. He's incompetent. That's the thing. He's just a bad luck Shreplock. Everything he touches is crap. It's just smoke and mirrors. Like all his buildings, all his stuff that he's done, it's just it's not. He's not good. Like he's not efficient. He's not a good businessman. He's just great at selling himself and getting people to believe him. And there's some destiny in his astrological chart. Like I haven't read it. I don't know how to read things like that. But you can see there's destiny there, right? Like there's some destiny in what he's doing here. And, with all that in mind, let's get to it here. I'm going to read a few of these comments. Somebody wrote, I'm not some guy who's obsessed with pockets. Man, I burst out laughing. I burst out laughter. I said people call me Pockets, and I'm like, I understand Mr. Pockets and various ways someone call me Paulie Pockets, or whatever. Like I just have lots of pockets on my clothes. Now, don't get me wrong. I wear cargo shorts, and I like extra pockets because Just the kind of person I am. I have ways not to lose things because I would lose things because I'm not a careful person. So I have nothing against pockets, but pockets of the future has zero to do with the physical pocket. It is, like I said, and that is funny. I'm not a guy obsessed with pockets, and so this person, wrote me an email, and I never regretted sending an email more. I've appreciated your work for about 8 years. Didn't know how to let you know that I'm still making positive comments, only they disappeared. Didn't mean to piss you off. Was not meant as a negative comment, but Paul, how are we supposed to let you know that we are still here watching and appreciating the videos, only our comments are disappearing? Well, first of all, this person, their comment isn't whatever YouTube does, what YouTube does. And and I don't know, sometimes YouTube puts people's comments in whatever it is, right? First of all, I wasn't pissed off by the thing. It was I can't, people think I'm angry. I just give an honest reaction. Like this is, to any of these things. Like I'm not angry, I'm not grudgeful, whatever the thing was. I don't mind an email when if someone said to me, I think I'm banned, I can search the ban thing. If people say like I said something, maybe misunderstood it, maybe it was whatever, or maybe I had a bad day and I said something. If people want to be unbanned, I'll unban them. If it's sometimes I could do it. Like maybe I misunderstood what they were saying, whatever. Mistakes are made, or someone had a bad day, or whatever it is. But the first thing I want to say is I don't get pissed off. Like people look at me, and it's like I have an angry face. My daughter said that when we were in India, the kids were scared of me, right? Which I didn't mind because I had a couple daughters, and whatever it is, and there's teenage boys there, whatever, and so I didn't mind it, but I wasn't, I'm not like I don't have like I still have some anger in me, but it barely ever comes out like it used to, and I'm not scary or whatever it is. But I tell the truth, and whatever it is. Like sometimes it can be blunt, and that kind of thing. I'm not, I'm a lot softer than I used to be. But having said that, all those things. Let me go back to the person's comment. And so I don't know exactly what I said, but the person wrote two things, and I apologize for emailing you. I know you're busy. You are. I don't comment much or say anything inappropriate, but I've commented a few times on Pockets of the channel. I noticed my comments disappear. I don't comment on any other channels, but tested it on others, had no problem with some of YouTube's shenanigans, or if you kindly suggested I leave. If this is a YouTube thing, I apologize again for taking up your time. So that one was fine. Then she wrote a second one. I respect your wishes because I've been listening to you for years. I took the time, and I'm glad to listen to your story and have a better understanding of you because of it. Some words you said also helped me through some very difficult times. I'm grateful. God bless you and your family. I don't want you here. I heard that you say that so many times. I just never thought you meant me. I'm not perfect, never will be. But like you, I'm trying. Now that comment came in before I got a chance to respond to the first comment. And like she just made that up. Like that never happened. I don't, I don't know what the second part, like that's, whatever's going on with this person, this part here. I don't want you here. I've heard you say it so many times. I just thought you meant me. I just never thought you meant me. Well, I don't say that. Like I want people here. I need an audience, right? I just be a guy talking to myself. It's just that when people are like, you suck, or your content sucks, and I'm like, Well, what do you think? I'm begging you to wash it? Like, just, like it's a silly thing to say, not just to me, to anybody. Like, you just want to come here and I wasn't saying to this person specifically, but if you criticize, or which I say I'm not open to, and not that criticism has value in the Sizemore system. It's just that the criticism that you get on YouTube is always about the person and never about me. It's never about legitimate feedback, and I'm not looking for legitimate feedback because most time people can't see. It's almost all the negativity that comes to you or comes to me or somebody else on YouTube comes from a butthurt, emotionally whatever place, right? So you know, there's that. And so the person said, I pissed you off. I think it was because, people are having, and again, I wasn't pissed off, like whatever I said. I don't remember what I said, right? To the, whatever this thing was said here. But it's just, more emotionally invested than it should be. Like a comment is, if there's negativity in a comment, and there wasn't any because I wasn't hiding this person's comments. Right? This had nothing to do with me. Like whatever happened, either the comments weren't hidden or YouTube did it. And then that's, so I wasn't, whatever. But I get I've had like millions of comments that I've looked through. I mean, I can't even believe it's millions. And then I looked it up when YouTube used to, they've changed their analytics program. And so this whole thing is somebody else this person had was going through something like I was mad at them or banned them or did whatever, right? And it was like a personal thing. But I mean, it's just, I ban people every day. My list of banned people is like crazy. And, every once in a while, like somebody says, I made a mistake and you unbanned me. And, it's a little bit of effort on my part, but I'm not going to do it, continuously do it, like unban people, like if they just, But there's just a bunch of boundaries that I put up there. It's a waste of my time. And I'm not here for people to dump their emotional stuff on me. And when I'm talking about stuff here, I don't care about it. And, Trumpers should know now that Trump's a piece of shit. Like, they should just know that. And like I said so many times, I don't care if somebody voted. I don't, it doesn't matter to me. And I don't care if you're a Trump fan. But at some point, you got to realize, if you voted for Trump just because you felt like you had to vote, and obviously Kamala Harris isn't, yeah, I can understand voting for Trump. Like, if he was, I mean, you can erase his last 6 months as president, what he got worked on COVID his last year, his last 8 months as president, and then what he did after the election, and then, his reaction, his bullshit, and then all the things that, the next 4 years with the media, just like it's just time to move on from Trump. And he showed that he wasn't anything that, people had hoped he would be. The way Operation Warp Speed was an absolute, nail in his coffin, and should have been for every truther. But, fine. You feel like you have to vote. But don't be a Trumper. Like, you can't believe in this guy anymore. Like, you really could never believe in him, but, like, if you're waiting for him to do something so you can't believe in him anymore, then, I mean, some things are just, they cross the line. Like, I liked a lot of things RFK Jr. was saying. He said a lot of great things, and he was thoughtful, and he was interesting in his interviews with Joe Rogan, all the ones that followed him. As he gave good interviews, and I learned stuff from what he said, like historical things, this Kennedy family, and some of the stuff. He was, he's an interesting person. He has raises falcons and these, birds of prey. Like, he does things. He's like, I mean, that whole thing about him skinning a bear and having a bear in the back of his car. Like, people mocked him for it, but that's like an interesting person that has skills, right? He has outdoor skills. Like, I appreciate skills. But the way he slathered all over Israel, we're going to get into Israel today. Again, I'm not some big anti-Israel and blaming Jews for everything. I don't believe any of that shit, right? But his position on Israel was so egregious, and he went in front of that guy, Rabbi Shmuley, who was fucking, the worst. He's got a daughter that sells like kosher dildos, right? But that's not why he's bad. He's just a horrible person. And to go on his show and just say the things he said, like it just killed it, right? So like, if you're going to be hopeful or you're going to think that there might be a candidate worth voting for, you have to be honest when they fucking show you that they're a piece of shit, right? Or at least that they're just going to be like everybody else. And they all do. Like, they're all will. There's no reason to vote. But, voting isn't the problem. It's being a Trumper, right? It's like, at this point, you should know that Trump is fucking a disaster. And like I said, I believe he's doing God's work. So, there's that. But that doesn't make it, like, excusable because he doesn't know he's doing God's work. He's just a piece of shit that happens to be destroying America, and God wants that to happen, right? But anyways, someone wrote, because Trump said his favorite book was the Bible, and then someone wrote his first favorite book is the Talmud, which I thought was funny because it seems to be. And then somebody else wrote, furthermore, he never placed his hand on the Bible when he swore in. How come more people aren't talking about that one? Yeah, I didn't see it. Like, people keep on saying, my wife told me that, like, there's just, and I covered it, but I didn't notice it. And I didn't go back and cover it, but that's what everybody's saying. He didn't even put his hand on the Bible. Which, holy shit, why not, right? I mean, if you don't believe in it. And then this thing about restless sleep, which, my sleep, like I've having these really good nights of sleep, but I have trouble going to sleep. It's been a thing. And then I've had people, this person's from Ireland. Well, 2 nights ago, I was restless in bed and wanted to rip my skin off. It was so itchy, I was blaming the cats, hearing noises that shouldn't be there. I live alone. Even the cats were spooked. Thank you for talking about that. I'm not mad. Certainly is a strange time. I love your channel and blessings from Ireland. I had some people commented from England and now some from Ireland. It's weird that there's some people that have had this similar experience. Specifically, not everyone is going to have restless nights from now, for different times. You might be onto something here. Years ago, I started studying astrology with school called School of Evolutionary Astrology. It's a good way to learn astrology, but I stopped following them because this was their spiel. They say that they can tell from your birth chart and the way that you live your life whether or not you sold your soul to the devil. This is an asteroid called Lucifer, and where you have it in your chart, that is the spot that makes you susceptible to evil. Needless to say, Donald Trump was their favorite person who allegedly sold his soul to the devil. They were even able to say when his past incarnations were, and were able to confirm it in Akashic records. My problem with them was that they've become a little cultish and kind of obsessed with stating who was sold their soul and who hasn't. I don't think this is real astrology. They decided it's supposed to be JDT's past life. I don't know who JDT is. I don't know this. So the thing about it is that one of the great things about Saj Marg is that you can change your destiny. Like, it takes effort, like a lot of effort on a person's part. But you can change the stars that you were born under. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. You have a life that's scripted, but you can, the high end of being scripted is that you can, you come to life and you have a life's plan and a soul plan. And things are going to happen. Certain things are just going to happen. But your way of reacting to them is key. And the way you react to them can minimize and change the script. And so even though astrology does work, like Master Charge used to say, your astrology will work when you don't. It takes like a Herculean effort to to change things. I mean, you can all, it's easy for people to make things worse, but it's hard for people to make things better. But it can be done. Like, there's whatever one's destiny is, people have to just, accept that this is what's happening, and then, willfully and spiritually change their experience, like what they experience internally, and being grateful to God. And there's ways that they could, there's the high end of what you can accomplish. But people, usually don't. And then this one, proof that Donald Trump is definitely not a Christian. And the AI bot that's been watching my videos. The video discusses Trump's lack of Christian faith, CNN's coverage of extremism, Stephen A. Smith's potential presidential run, and various political topics. It criticizes mainstream media, AI education, and explores themes of societal change and spiritual evolution. I think I might have read this one already. But anyways, so there's that. So I just kind of want to make this clear. Like, everything that's going to happen in life is scripted by the divine plan. There's order. There's either God or there isn't. If there's God, there's order, and there's, corrective. There's things being corrected. Because if there's God, we also have freedom of choice. Like, we make mistakes. If there's no order, if everything is chaotic already, right? If we're in a state of chaos, people think that there's chaos in divinity, but there's not. Like, there's just because there's a hurricane, or a tornado, chaos isn't messy. People think that chaos is messy. Like, divinity is tidy in some way, and it's not tidy because, the things are whatever they are, right? In terms of, they're just reordered. Like, if there is a storm, it's just reordered. Remember, Trump said there's a storm coming. Like, that was a big thing for the QBs and the Trumpers. He's predicting it. Like, he's prophetic, and he's doing God's work, and that was the whole thing. They had T-shirts, the storm is coming, right? The storm, right? So, but chaos is when you do a lot of bad shit that goes against God's will, and then there's going to be a correction to it. And so, we like things orderly, but they don't stay orderly. Nothing stays orderly. Everything changes. So it's, we like to have changeless situation. We want to have consistency. We want to have control. And so a lack of control is in chaos. Chaos comes from making bad decisions and then having consequences, divine consequences that are, a result of your bad decisions. And so Trump is making all these chaotic, bad choices on top of bad choices that have been made by everybody for so long. And so when a corrective action comes, people think that that's, chaos because there's a lack of control. But control is never there. Control is just a temporary situation. Because if there was control, no one would ever die. I mean, there's people who want to die and, people get suicidal. But most people would just not want to die, right? They would be like, I'll just live forever. And so, that can't be. So discomfort is a part of life. Change is a part of life. So my coverage of Trump, because I believe that this is God's plan and believed this for a while, that America was going to, the world was going to change dramatically. That we're entering a transitionary period, and, the ensuing lack of control and apparent chaos is evident. And so, Trump is an agent of chaos, an agent of the collapse of the system, and is therefore a part of doing God's work. So for that, he gets a pass on a spiritual level. But on a material level, he's a selfish, narcissistic, thoughtless, horrible leader, piece of shit, right? Which helps in his work of, destruction and these things. And now, it's just the belief that Trump is good. That's what I'm covering here. Like the people who were Trumpers, because they were hard to deal with. The Trumpers were often also QBs and or flat earthers and, these groups of people, right, that are difficult to deal with, right? On the left, it's vegans and, these people who are just, I don't want to even call them extremists, but they just believe in something that's a faulty belief system. People who are ardent Christians who don't see that there's, their indoctrination and their belief system is coming from a place of desperation and not truth. And so they're hard to deal with, right? Because they will not accept the feedback they're getting. I mean, in general, people are like this, modern people, because people don't want to change. And we're being told over and over again, you have to change, and they're just not accepting it. And so, just accepting it, even if you don't work towards changing, but realizing you have to change is the key. And that's what I'm talking about here specifically, that this is about changing. And it isn't about Democrats saying, oh, Trump's a piece of shit. We were right all along. I told you so, Kamala Harris. Like, you think it would be better if Kamala was president? Like, come on. Democrats, I mean, I don't have Democratic viewers, but like, that's an easier thing to see for most of you. Like, we all have to change. Like, this is not sustainable. It never was. And it's not just not sustainable, it's bad for us. Like, we're doing damage for our future lives because of this system. We're doing things that are making our, future selves. I talked about Tuesday Paul screwing over Thursday Paul. Like, we screw ourselves over all the time. We're making a mess today that a future version of ourselves, this incarnation, who we are today as a person, is screwing ourselves over in this life. Never mind what we're doing to our future versions of ourselves in a future life. I mean, some thought has to be that you're not making it hard for your soul in your next incarnation. Like, that's a part of life where you're making the world a better place, and you're doing a job where you're moving forward and not backwards. And the majority of people are moving backwards. 99.9% of people are making it harder on themselves, not only in this life, but in future lives, and making it worse for everybody. Like, future, as a, generation, it's kind of your job. It's definitely our job as adults to make it better for the kids and, for children. But that's been a material thing, right? We can get them more money. And so, like, people think they're making it better for their kids by having more money for them. But then, their kids are pieces of shit because they don't really, they've allowed the system to raise them, and they don't, how many parents have been disappointed by their kids in, successive generations, and how many kids have felt left down by their parents because they didn't prepare them and, didn't help them in a way that's genuine, a way that's, really going to help them. Just money isn't, enough, right? So, and the kids don't listen to their parents, and the parents you can't believe that the kids are like the way they turned out, and this whole thing. And the system is, this beastly system is providing for that by destroying the family, which we've all allowed to happen. And so there's consequences for that, because we are going against God's will, and now the consequences are upon us. And so there's nothing more than that. It's no reason to bitch about the Democrats or the Republicans or Trump or Biden or any of these things. It's each person has to figure out what they have to change. What's your big issues that you could change that can, improve not only your situation, but the collective situation. And nobody wants to deal with that shit. So that's what I talk about here. But anyways, this whole thing about Trump and Miss Marple, let's get into that first. Okay, so I want to get into this Miss Marple thing next. But here's a future Miss Marple, Dana Bash.
We start with America's oldest college doing something multiple law firms, businesses, and top universities in this country have not. Stand up to President Trump. And today, Harvard is paying the price, literally. The White House says it's freezing more than $2 billion in grants to the university after it rejected the administration's demands for sweeping changes. Moments ago, the president even went further. He threatened the university's tax-exempt status unless it acts, quote, in the public interest. But is it really the public interest, or does it go well beyond that to what President Trump's political interests are? That is clearly what Harvard thinks. CNN's Jeff Zeleny is at the White House. So, Jeff, here's the bottom line. This all sort of came at Harvard and other universities with the pretext of the notion that they didn't fight anti-Semitism hard enough. But what they
Okay, so let me say this. I dislike Harvard and everything it stands for. Yale, I grew up close to Harvard. Connecticut's close to Boston, and New Haven's about an hour away. Boston's like 2 hours away. And, I have some association with some Harvard people. I went to Yale for some testing where I was, diagnosed with dyslexia when I was like 7 or 8 or something like that, which I didn't have a bad time there. There was a time, I was a very shy kid, and my dad was always embarrassing me. I don't know if shy is the right word, but introverted. My dad used to like sing when we went to the mall. Like he would do things to call attention, whatever it was. I remember being at McDonald's and my dad was acting goofy, and I'm a little kid and I thought my dad was cool, like not cool, but I knew he was kind of a dipshit back then. But I had a high opinion of my dad. Enjoyed my dad's company when I was like 7 or 8, whatever it was. Till I was, I don't know when exactly. It was just like, oh, I can't stand this MNFer. But anyways, when I was getting tested at Yale, there was a two-way mirror. I knew my dad was on the other side, and there was a room full of people observing me. Like, I didn't know this. I knew my dad was in there. And my dad encouraged me to swear. He took me to Blazing Saddles. He was a guidance counselor. He wasn't like some tough guy or something, but he encouraged me to swear, which my mom was very upset about. But I gave my dad the finger, like at the two-way mirror, and he was in a room full of people. As one time, I really embarrassed him. So I'd be interested in reading that report if it still exists. About what my whatever profile they created for me back then. But aside from that, Yale and Harvard, there's this great article. It's called "Witches, Midwives, and something." Well, I forget what it is, but it's about nurses. I think it's nurses, midwives, and witches. And it was how the college institutions, these controlling institutions, made it so that they were the only people that could make doctors. Everyone else was considered illegal. They weren't considered legitimate healthcare professional. Anybody who was like, a shaman or a local midwife or a local, herbalist. And, women are always better at medicine than men. Not all, there's some men that are great healers, but women are more naturally better at these types of things, nurturing. And it's, the mother inside, so then it's a great article how these institutions made it illegal. This is where allopathic medicine came from, and eventually the pharmaceutical nightmare industry and all this stuff. So it's it's worth reading. It's a small book. I read it when I was in my my last attempt at college before getting my degree, and these institutions are known for power and control. These rich motherfuckers who the Skull and Bones in Yale and the stuff, the Harvard, all this old school weird fraternity bullshit, is where rich and powerful people meet to connect with each other, marry each other, these things, and all this stuff, power couple, all the stuff that they do. And I don't like them. I don't like these old time universities. I don't like what they stand for. So Trump taking them down would be okay, and whatever. I'd be happy with it. It was for the right reason, right? I mean, they're part of the cabal, part of the controlling system, the secret society bullshit. I mean, all of the stuff that it represents. But they're right in this case, and Trump is 100% wrong because he's controlled by Israel. And he is pushing back against their freedom of speech. And I'm against protests too. I talk about how protests suck and they never work. I mean, what I feel about this. And so there's nothing about these universities that I like. And there's good things there. They're beautiful places. Like there's, And there's real teachers and knowledge. I mean, there's things there that, I mean, it's not like all evil or something, but, what they represent. These old school university, Ivy League schools. I've been to some of these campuses, and they're amazing. They're, beautiful places. And there's, I mean, there's some brilliant people, and there's some good shit that's come out of these places. It's not all bad, but, what they represent. And protests suck, and they're stupid. But in all that, college kids and young people have the right to express their, stupidity, right? And, it's part of our freedom of speech and constitutional rights. And he is pushing back on them, using the U.S. government to back a religion and a foreign country, because he's owned by fucking Israel, which we're going to get into. There's stuff I got to show you later on. And I'm not, again, I went to my friend's bar mitzvah, Alan Catton, when he was, whatever, 13 or whatever it was, for one of my friends from elementary school. And there was 40% Jewish people. I have one friend who, my old basketball buddies, me and this guy started a YMCA team together, and we played intramural basketball. And we used to play at the same park. People play basketball, have their special park, who played park basketball, which is right now would be time I'd be going out playing park basketball, depending on where I lived. And it was a hotter place like Florida, maybe not so much, but, it's just, summer basketball season in Connecticut. And I just, it's part of the spring. So it was like a whole spring thing. Like I loved playing, street ball more than, I like basketball courts and indoor basketball, but I excelled at street ball, cement courts and whatever it was. And, this one guy who's, I mean, I don't know how Jewish he is, because I don't know if he never talked about being Jewish other than that's what he was born as. Like I didn't talk about being Italian, Irish, German, and Albanian. These are, whatever. He's the only person that still tries to contact me. He listens to some of these videos. And so, and the guy who started me in Saj Mark, Fred, one of my favorite people in the world, is a Jewish guy, old Jewish hippie. And so I'm not, anti-Jew, and I don't have any of these things, hatred towards them, and they exist in the truth community. And you'll see this, because I'm going to cover things here, but there's issues. With every group, it's a power group. Israel is a power block, and they have control over Trump and various financial institutions and Hollywood. I mean, whatever you want to call that. They have influence. If you want to say they have complete control, fine, whatever it is. Like, I don't know the exact percentage of their control. And there's people in the Jewish tradition that are, they have some power and say, and they own Trump, right? And because of that, this is a fucked up thing. I mean, it's a fucked up thing because it's a religion, and it's censorship, and it's, going against these higher institutions, and it's, a bunch of other bullshit that Trump's doing all at once that's not his job, that he shouldn't be doing. Again, believe that he's taken down the country for, I mean, it's God's plan, and he's a part of it. He's the doofus, and he's the bumbling idiot who thinks he's doing great things, and of course he's going to make bank on it too. He's going to get paid off. He's going to get a lot of influence. And he's going to get a lot of benefit from doing these things personally, but he's running the country into the ground, which it needs to happen. But again, he's not the guy who's doing God's will. Like God ordered him to destroy it, and he's doing God's will. Like saints, there's spiritual people are connected to God, and they get instructions to destroy something, and they make a sankalpa, a strong spiritual will, and they make something happen. Like higher developed souls get orders from God, and they create doofuses like Trump to do God's bidding. Like they give them the power and like Gandhi was, like Babaji, the second master of Sajmark system, was ordered to get England out of India, and Gandhi was his tool. Gandhi, of course, was better than Trump in various ways. He wasn't as much of a dick, but he had his issues. Gandhi had his dark side and whatever, but Trump is like embracing his dark side in a way that's kind of unprecedented.
Asked for inside that White House in terms of demands for reform is far more than fighting anti-Semitism.
It certainly is, Dan. I mean, it spans the gamut of sort of grievances that have been built up by this president really since he entered public life and well before that. But you're right. I mean, the actual thing that sparked it, at least what the administration will say, are the protests that broke out across college campuses on October 7th, of course, when Israel was attacked. We saw them in real time. We saw them unfold. And that's what the administration.
I mean, that's a lot of money, $2.2 billion. They have a shit ton of money. They have endowments. They have all these really ultra wealthy billionaires and people who are, Harvard graduates, and so they have money. But and I don't know why they're getting $2.2 billion from fucking the government on top of everything else. But they're just going to go into these universities that, that piss him off, and Trump is this is just petty little Trump shit. It has nothing to do with what's best for America or American people or any of these things. And so, like I said, I don't mind seeing Harvard get dinged up, but fucking this is wrong. What Trump's doing is wrong.
Administration is using as one of the.
I mean, if you want to say it's karma for years of fucking evil shit Harvard's been responsible for, great, right? And you can say but Trump isn't doing it for that reason. That's the point. Like whatever Harvard deserves or doesn't deserve, I mean, this is going to be part of God's will. The reason that Trump's doing it and the reason Trump does everything is because Trump does what Trump wants, right? Unless he gets handled and told what to do by Israel or somebody else. And then, Trump will want to do it because they're going to give him shit for it, right? He's going to get something out of it.
Examples, but let's look at a few other examples of just specific things that the administration has raised to a variety of universities. The elimination of DEI programs, reforming programs with records of anti-Semitism, university governance and leadership reforms, comprehensive mask ban. Of course, that goes back to the pandemic era.
Yeah, I'm glad about that.
Merit-based hiring and admission reform, an audit of viewpoint diversity, as well as student to discipline policies, including police involvement. So if you look at the actual sort of points of fact that the universities are being presented with, and some of it also comes with the closure of the Department of Education, at least the recommended closure. Universities are being hit with a wide gamut.
Trump has been catering to dumb people. And, there are smart people, IQ-wise, who are Trumpers or whatever. And maybe they see through Trump, but it's best for them, whatever reason they're Trumpers. But for most part, his message has been dumbed down. And we saw it, there was no greater example than Ketchupgate. It was him saying, fight, 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 with dry ketchup streaming down his ear. And him not being shot in the ear, which was documented by me, and I don't know how many other people, but he had the blood was already dry, and he said it was all over his hands. When he looked at his hand, he touched his ear and looked at his hand, and said he saw blood, and there was no blood. And they said blood was gushing out of his ear, which we're going to get to now with Miss Marple, and then with all the stuff that happened with his ear, he put a bandage on, didn't need any stitches, went to the hospital for a nick, and then he took it off, and there was no. They put a huge bandage on it when he was at the convention, and it was totally WWE. It was like a Vince McMahon scripted, and that's for dumb people who like that kind of low-brow, low-vibrational entertainment. And that's what Trump was appealing to. Fight, fight, fight. And that dumb person in every person, the fucking dumb patriotic bullshit and the stuff that's fake as fuck to rally people up emotionally to go do battle and shit, like when their interests aren't being met, but they get worked emotionally and they get all fired up, and they get like the stuff that happens with TV shows and movies, and where they can emotionally manipulate you. And when you're in your lower emotional immature state and you do stupid shit because you're not thinking clearly, right? It's the emotional equivalent of thinking with your dick kind of thing, right? And so that's what Trump is appealing to. He's appealing to people's lowest common denominator, the lowest part of them, and stupid people who buy into this bullshit. And so let's go to the Miss Marple thing. So one of my viewers tipped me off to this, and I didn't get it at first. Miss Marple, Joan Hickson, A Murder's Announced, 1985. So my mom liked mysteries. She read some of these mystery books and liked to watch mystery shows. And I like them to the extent, they're not my favorite thing. I like science fiction, but, I like to figure things out. Like I like to see, the way that now that I make content, the content I make isn't anything like a movie or a TV show, but, I wrote a book and, understand storylines and things and understand these other aspects of stuff. And so I can see the way that they create narratives. Like I'm a storyteller, so I get these things. And so I'm interested in that kind of thing. That's part of why I like TV shows and movies and, where they drop information that is going to resurface later on and these things. Of course, they do red herrings and they do things to throw you off and whatever. My ex liked Miss Marple, that it was on, PBS, because she liked British TV because she was pretentious and, she went to an Ivy League school. So like that. So, I'm familiar with these things. My wife likes, my wife now likes mysteries. But someone tipped me off that Miss Marple, this storyline was basically the foundation of Ketchupgate. And it is. Like, we didn't watch the whole thing. It's three episodes, which is 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's on YouTube. But it starts off where they're in this village in 1985. Like, it's set in the past. But I was, this was 3 years after I graduated high school. I graduated in 82. So this is fucked. Like, it's really weird. That it's so low, low, production values. But the first part of it is there's a wealthy woman, and somebody puts an advertisement out that there's going to be a murder in her house. So all of her friends come over because it looks like it's a joke. She has a couple of people sponging off of her like some distant cousins that she didn't know they had, that are brother and sister, but they seem more like a married couple, and some other people. And they all show up, and it's like a joke. It's supposed to be some sort of joke thing. And nobody knows who took the advertisement out, or no one will admit to it. And so during this process, the lights go out. And
Isn't it wonderful? I must say it's quite impressive so far.
and so they're all saying things. And then there's gunfire. And so there's some shots fired, and the lights come on. So there's a hysterical foreign maid. It comes out that she's foreign, and there's some prejudice towards her. She has a heavy accent. I mean, it's a thing. I don't mean it's obvious that she's foreign, but she comes in, and she didn't want to be there when she saw because she thought she'd be the one murdered when she saw the ad, and she gets hysterical. She gets led into the room.
And a man locked me in, and then I heard shooting. Now stop it!
Dude just slaps her. Dude just slaps. That's back when you could just slap women for being hysterical. Those are the days when a woman was hysterical, you could just fall off and slap her, and it was considered okay. And the miracle of it is that once they're slapped, they're not like, "Hey, you just slapped me." They're like, "Oh, thanks." Now that a man has slapped me, I'm okay now. So that has nothing to do with the Trump part, but it's kind of funny. So then he stops it. He says, slaps her and stop it. And she looks at her employer.
In the kitchen cupboard. There's a Blacklock!
So she points to her employer and says, Mrs. Blackrock. Her name is literally Mrs. Blackrock. Me and my wife been watching this, and we didn't even notice that. And then I just until I start editing, I'm like, holy shit, her name's Blackrock.
Letty, you're bleeding.
You're bleeding. She's bleeding. Where's she bleeding from?
Something grazed my ear.
Something grazed my ear. And so then I'm like, all right, I now know why this person sent this to me. And so her ear was shot.
Of course, ears bleed. Everybody knows that.
Ears bleed, everybody knows that. Trump said those exact same fucking words. Ears bleed, everyone knows that. Something about the ear, he went into it. It came right from Miss Marple, Mrs. Blackrock. And so, just fucked up that shit, right? I mean, it's just messed up. And he totally Miss Marple this whole thing. And so, there's another TV show that's more that's probably even the 2000s. It's a little bit, it's not as far back. And it's not as old as this one. And they've made these episodes. I'm not going to watch both of them because, how much can I do? But it'd be interesting to see that take on it. But here it's pretty condemning. Now, Trump, when he went on Joe Rogan, the Nick was gone. All the things that we know. So, there's so let me just say this. So, it was not really believable. When I first heard Trump was shot, well, I was like, somebody took a shot at the president. Then I'm like, oh, he was hit. And then I watched it, and it was like his ear was bleeding. He was going fight, fight, fight. And I went, that's fake as fuck. And I said to my wife, this is like WWE stuff. She goes, no, it's like, there's these things about it. It's like it's a serious thing. Like she was like that. But then we started watching the news coverage, and like within minutes, she knew it was fake too. It was just fake as fuck. It was. And so, and if it was a Democrat, if it was Joe Biden, all the people who are thinking that Trump got shot would be saying it's fake, like all the truthers and all that, right? And, the majority of them would be saying it because it was fake. And then, and I said it was WWE, and I had no idea that he was going to do a WWE thing. It happened, the timing of it, right? Like his convention he was shot like on Saturday or Sunday, so I think it was Saturday, and the convention was on Monday. So he comes out, he's wearing the fucking bandage. I knew he was going to come out, and I predicted all these things. I said, this is how it's going to be. And they're going to make this thing the fight, fight, fight thing, which he was mouthing the words. It was totally acted. The Secret Service, the whole thing was a hoax. And I went through it up and down and backwards and sideways and, all kinds of ways. And it was obviously just a completely bullshit thing. And his ear, which was, again, he went to the hospital for no reason because it stopped bleeding immediately. He got up and the blood was dry. You can see it's all dry. It wasn't blood. It was ketchup, fake blood. And he gets up because he didn't even want them to cut his ear. Like if they actually cut his ear, then it would be hard for me to say what I'm saying. But he wouldn't commit. I mean, they could have just cut his ear. And, it would be way harder to call it bullshit then. But it's easier now because he wouldn't even do that. He's not committed. He's a pussy, right? Like, it's not that big a deal to get a little nick on your ear for something this magnitude. Take a little chunk out of it, right? We had all those guys on top of him. He talked about those guys being on top of him and all that shit. And then they let him up and they gave, without knowing that there's no way they should have let his head be exposed as he walked to the car. I mean, all the things that we've seen. We've seen this stuff over and over again. And I went through it. In all that, he then rolls out Hulk Hogan the last day. He comes out with a big patch on his ear. And there's no cut on his ear, no scar. There's nothing. Then for a week or so, he has a bandage on his ear. And then he finally takes it off. I'm like, let's see what it looks like. And there's nothing there. Like, there's nothing there. There was nothing that happened. And I demonstrated how it'd be impossible of the bullet from where they said the shooter was. The shooter didn't have a perpendicular straight line through his ear without hitting him in the face or the head. Either way, there was no way just to hit the ear. And so no bullet hit his ear. The whole thing was fucking bullshit. It was just a fake fucking WWE bullshit thing. Right? And, they had access to him. The snipers had him, and there's a guy on the roof with a gun, and the snipers choose not to shoot him until he shoots. These were Secret Service. Just the whole thing, everything that was done there. From the beginning to the end of it, the way the guy got through with a rangefinder. He was carrying a rangefinder in, and they let him in and went through security. Every possible way. The thing was bogus as fuck, right? And, the Trumpers were the Trumpers, and they didn't want to admit that this guy's a lying piece of shit. And people were desperate. So, then the truthers went along with it for some fucking God knows reason. But every truther that endorsed this should come out and say, yeah, I got fucking duped. I'm a moron. Or whatever. I don't want to put words in people's mouths. But they should just say it. Not because, like if I would say it, I would say, like I was wrong. Like I just, I wouldn't go along with this thing. Like the thing with Kennedy, like I said, the guy was much more compelling. He's much smarter. He's much more interesting. than Trump, gave better interviews. He was right about the vax. He was right about environmental stuff. He was right about a lot of things. He did real work, real positive change. He changed environmental laws, and he was helping these women, these mothers who had, autistic kids. I mean, he did work, and he was well versed in a lot of the things. But then when he came out with Israel, I'm like, all right, it's a piece of shit, right? I gave him the benefit of the doubt, but then he showed something, and I was like, I mean, I'm not desperate to vote for somebody. Like if somebody was worthy of, that's like I don't give a shit about voting. Voting's stupid, but there's no one worthy of my vote, right? They're not worthy of it. Like it's not worthy for me to endorse any of these people. Not like my vote's some big thing. It's a nothing thing. It doesn't even matter, right? But just for me to get out there and pull the lever for somebody and say I endorse this person for president, there hasn't been anybody in my lifetime that's been worth that, right? Regardless of how bad the other person is or any of these things. But Trump did this shit. Like he, pulled this bogus thing, and it's clear. And now it should be clear to everyone because you can't justify any of the shit that he's doing. It's all fucked up. And it's kind of funny in a way, but it's not. And it's, all the things that I talk about. Like a Harvard sucking. He is taking down shitty institutions, but that's also the American government and the economic system, which suck, but, we kind of depend on them. And it's good, it's God's will, but also it sucks. And Trump is a piece of shit. And he's a lying fucking performative piece of shit. And if he got you on the fucking assassination as a truther, like you should question why you're producing content when you fucking miss something like that, right? And I'm not telling people to stop, whatever. But all these people should come forward and say, I got duped. And now we have this Miss Marple thing, but you don't need this thing, like this fact that this was already played out in a scenario. There's more stuff to come here. I haven't watched the end, but I'm going to watch the end today and put this in there just to see how they resolve it. But the woman who got shot is the woman she's like a moneyed person, established person. And they find a dead body like a patsy on the floor. I'll show you that part next. And the patsy is a guy who turns out to be, he worked as a host at a club or a restaurant that this woman went to. And he was womanizing. He was another foreigner from Switzerland or something. And he was a thief, a petty thief. And later it comes out, because Miss Marple, they have a cop that comes in, and his name is Alec, and he looks like Alec Baldwin. And I'll show you a little clip of him. He's very deadpan and serious. And he just walks around like getting basic bare minimum facts. And Miss Marple comes in and schools him like Miss Marple do. And they find out that he received money to publish this advertisement and show up and rob these people. But they later figure out that he couldn't possibly. They say he killed himself because he got confused and shot himself instead of, he was supposed to shoot this woman. And this hysterical woman keeps on saying that he tried to murder you. And so that's where I am in this plot line. My wife and I watch, this out with things like 2 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes long. So that's what we were able to get through. And, it's a real sleeper. But anyways, let me show you this guy here. But let me just say this. This is the important piece. The overwhelming evidence is that this thing was fake with Trump, right? It just is. Like everything about it was fake. And if, like I said, if it was Biden or anybody else or Kamala Harris, you would say it was fake. Every truther would say it was fake, or at least maybe you wouldn't be able to say it was fake, but you knew it was fake and you'd have to talk around it because you're worried about censorship. But because it was Trump and you thought Trump was better than he was, even after Operation Warp Speed and all the shit that he showed you, all the bullshit that he pulled, that you gave him the benefit of the doubt and you gave him, a level of endorsement that you wouldn't have given any other candidate because, whatever reason, Trump has betrayed your trust. He's like, his poll numbers are down. Everyone can see he's losing independence. He's doing a lot of bullshit stuff. And even if you're not against him yet, you kind of must be a little bit worried that he's fucked you. And, like if you're awake at all. And so as truthers, people especially produce truther content, now it should be the time. Like you're like, yeah, that thing was fake. We can see Trump's a piece of shit, so we now know undeniably that the fucking, this, especially since he hasn't done anything about it. Like they're putting out like, some merch with him saying fight, fight, fight. But Trump hasn't done anything to ensure that this won't happen again, hasn't made this a prominent issue. And he's walking around like he doesn't think this could happen again. Remember, there was 3 attempts within 2 weeks. 3 attempts. Remember, the second attempt and the third attempt was thwarted. And then nothing, like now nothing, that he's doing all this stuff. You know, he's taken on all these powerful institutions and foreign governments and countries in Iran. And, you know, he's about to start World War III, and he's got these tariffs in China. And nothing from anybody, right? And so unless they have that plan somewhere down the line where he gets knocked off, but it isn't going to be anytime soon because he's doing exactly what they want him to do. He's got the backing of the controllers. He's not, you know, he's not a threat. He's their boy. Trump is their fucking boy. So here's a dead guy wearing a Batman mask, young man from whatever it is, Sweden or Switzerland, who was hired to put out this ad that's causing such a controversy. So it's who paid him to do this. He ends up getting shot, even though he's the one who's supposed to have the gun. He came into the room and said, stick him up, and, you know, all of those things. This is the patsy, you know, the guy on the roof who, you know, very similar to the Trump fake assassination attempt. So this hysterical woman who is, you know, the Trump supporters, right? In this whole show, she's holding this thing with the blood. She recognized him as he's the host at the restaurant club that they go to, and that he had come around asking for money, and this woman, Mrs. Blackrock, said no, and then he, you know, did his thing here.
He came here to kill you, Letty. He did.
She gets hysterical, right? Then nobody slaps her, though. She's not foreign.
Julia, run upstairs to the bathroom and get some sticking plasters. My blood seems to be upsetting everybody.
My blood seems to be upsetting everybody. You know, this is taken right out. I mean, Trump took this whole fucking thing, you know, so this exists fictionally, right? It didn't happen in real life. It's hard to shoot in here. You know, we're talking about 100 and whatever it is, 50 yards away. And, I mean, not that the guy was aiming for his ear, but it's hard to shoot the ear unless you hit the face. I mean, the ear is, you know, even, you have to have a straight line of fire. The bullet has to go in a way that doesn't hit the back of the head or the front of the face. Because the way your head's tilted, his head would have to tilt. It didn't happen. No, his ear wasn't bleeding. It just fucking, he got up, the ketchup was dry. I mean, it's just so fucking fake. It's just it's a totally Trump thing. So my wife pointed this out. The guy does look like Alec Baldwin. His name is Alec. You got Blackrock and Alec. You know, you can't see it so great from here, but he plays a very stiff character, this guy. Very inept. But Alec Baldwin, you know, when he did his Trump impression, he did these ducky lips. And I'm like, well, Trump doesn't do ducky lips. And then when I started seeing Alec Baldwin post bullshit on Instagram, this is how I started covering him. I saw that he had ducky lips. And he was just exaggerating his own idiosyncratic bullshit stuff. And he wasn't really imitating Trump, which isn't really all that hard to do. But he sucked at it, right? His imitation was horrible. And then I realized he hated Trump so much because Trump and him are very similar, right? That's why I started covering him because of that, because his hatred for Trump was self-generated. But this guy...
Did he ever mention the village of Chipping Cleghorn?
Chipping Cleghorn! And so that's Alec. So she got hit in the earlobe, but she has this very similar bandage to what Trump was wearing, right? So they, you know... The bandage thing is great. You can see it better here, and there's this weird choke chain here that she's wearing. So this is an interesting scene in episode 2. Here's the hysterical Trumper saying this.
It's a miracle Lottie wasn't killed.
It was a miracle she wasn't killed.
Gracious.
But you were jolly severely wounded, weren't you?
She was severely wounded.
Are you fully recovered now, Miss Blacklock?
Yes, of course. It was only a scratch.
It's only a scratch.
Wear this plaster to get sympathy from my nearest and dearest.
So she only wears the bandage to get sympathy. Which, of course, Trump would put on that big-ass bandage and, you know, all the stuff, right? He put on the big-ass fucking speech bandage. It turned out to be unnecessary because he didn't even need stitches. He went to the hospital. The blood had already, the ketchup had already dried, And his own doctor said it was a less than 2 centimeter cut, which is, there was nothing there, but that's non-existent. I mean, there wasn't, nothing happened. All right, so I fast forwarded to the end. A bunch of people turned out to be not who they said they were. And there might be things I'm missing because we didn't watch the last episode yet. But I want to get this video up, so I fast forwarded to the end. And there's a lot of deception, a lot of accusations, a lot of people who are faking to be other people than they actually are, all that kind of Agatha Christie bullshit that happens. But here is the woman, Mrs. Blackrock, who is the Trump character. She's taking her maid and putting her head in either a sink or the toilet.
You couldn't possibly have seen me.
She said, "You couldn't possibly have seen me." I guess it's a sink. So that happens. So Miss Marple busts in. She looks a little bit like Martha Stewart here, right? So she obviously did this to herself, faked the ear thing, which we'll get to apparently in a moment. Her name's Blacklock and not Blackrock. But anyways, same thing, almost. So she goes out and kills the guy. She murders him for whatever reason. I don't know why, because I haven't watched that part. But then she goes out, shoots the guy, and then this happened.
Then she nicked her ear with a pair of nail scissors. If you snip all over the ear, it releases quite a lot of blood.
Boom. So she didn't use fake blood like Trump. She wasn't much of a pussy as Trump was. But it's so she stays to make it look like someone tried to shoot her when she was the one who actually was murdering the kid, and then she did the fake blood, a la, the whole Trump thing. The situation that we're in, like sometimes you're in an all or nothing situation, or sometimes you're with all or nothing people, right? And we're in an all or nothing situation, and Trump's an all or nothing person. So I said this before, Trump can't be, he's got to be everything he says he is. And I think all of his supporters know on some level he's a bullshitter. They know he's a little bit of a grifter, but they thought he might do some of these things. And it's just crazy enough that it might work, this kind of stuff, right? And this whole idea of outsiders, which I've talked about before, that we know what we're getting with regular politicians, do-nothing politicians that don't want to rock the boat, politicians that don't want to take bold chances. I mean, I said this in my last video. There's a reason why they haven't done these tariffs. And now, there's been reports that are coming out. Some guy for the Federal Reserve just put out a bunch of shit. And they say, it's definitely going to pass. There's going to be two effects. Unemployment's going to rise because of the tariffs, and prices are going to go up. There's going to be some negative effects. So the market's tanked again, all these things. And we live in a very fragile system that Trump thinks is a lot stronger, and he shouldn't. He should know more than the average person. Most people in his level of finance and business and things would know that the system, the economic system, is really fragile. And most politicians would know that as well. And nobody wants to be the person that caused it to collapse, right? Nobody wants to have Biden economics or Bidenomics or whatever it's called. No one wants to have like a Obamacare, like that shit. The depression, Trump recession, right? These things. Nobody wants that shit. I mean, that's part of what their whole thing about legacy. It's not just about money and wealth and power, but becoming a historical figure. You were president, right? I mean, it's a rarity. It's a rare thing to be. There's only one of all the people in the country and a few former ones. I mean, usually there's, 3 or 4 or 5 former presidents. I don't think there's been any more than 5 in my lifetime that were alive at the same time. And it's usually less. So Clinton, Obama, Carter just died, George W. Bush, and Biden. So there's 4 right now. Maybe 6. I mean, depends on, whatever it is. Longevity, how many first-termers there were. One-termer.
So people wanted somebody who was going to go in and do things that, the desperate times called for desperate measures. And Trump is somebody that desperate people vote for. And, everyone should now know that was all bullshit. Trump's a, piece of shit. And, it was never going to go the way that people wanted it to go. And I've said this before, nobody can save the country, least of all Trump. And so if he isn't going to be great, he's going to be horrible, all or nothing. And so everyone should kind of know now that Trump is going to be horrible, worse than your average shitty president, because he's done a bunch of stuff, and most of it's bad. And so once you realize that, you should be able to make this easy leap, not even a leap, a baby step, to the fact that he faked his assassination attempt. And once that's there, then, oh my God, this is fucked. Like, how bad is it? Well, it's fucking bad, right? A guy who faked his assassination attempt in such a bogus way, and that so many people fell for it. I mean, people in the truth community. There's a time where one of my viewers said that he watched like 60 different channels, and only 3 people, I think including me, had said that it was fake, or some people said it might be fake, right? And so, like, that's fucked, right? So that shows you how bad times are and how, bogus the truth community is. The other thing is, if Agatha Christie wrote this thing years and years ago, was the 1800s, and, whatever, not early 19, I don't even know when she was alive. And, this was a sort of false flaggy kind of, the whole thing. And a lot of this storyline is very similar to Trump's fake, bogus assassination attempt. Sometimes there's things like this. There's stuff in literature or stuff that was around that's just out there in the ethos, or somebody picks up on it, or it's a way to confirm that there's a divine plan here, or whatever it might be. But this doesn't appear to be that. Whoever thought this thing up, I don't think it really was. They might have got their inspiration from Agatha Christie and Miss Marple, but they also got it from wrestling, which I said before. Red is green was a saying in wrestling. If you cut yourself and you bled, they loved it. Like, it was the fans loved it. That shows you how fucked up wrestling is. And these guys had all these scars on their forehead where they cut themselves, and then they store a little razor blade in their where they wrap their wrists or whatever it might be, and they pull it out and cut themselves, and then the whole fucking crowd would go nuts, and they get paid extra for doing that, because that's the kind of sick fuck Vince McMahon is, and his wife is, who's now in charge of the healthcare department. She thinks AI is A1. This is like how fucked everything. Like, all the things that I've shown you about how fucked up Trump is, how fucked up his administration is, and how wrong-headed it is. It's that fucking bad, right? And like I said before, the telltale sign for all these things is, the fake things just don't have any staying power, because people at some level know they're fake. And the people who are faking them, eventually, it runs its course, and then they don't talk about it so much. Some things are real events that happened where they're, like 9/11, like those buildings came down, for example, right? There's things like that. There's things that, are, maybe they're scripted, maybe they're not, but they're organic partially or whatever. But then there's things that are just so fake and so egregious, like Trump's fake assassination thing, that, it's just something they can't stick with. Like, the diehard Trump's fans will still say, fight, 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 and some of that imagery will still be there. But there's no damage done to his ear. It's obviously, he, at the very least, he exaggerated. He had a cut that was already healed by the time he got to the hospital. He had a boo-boo, right? He had a fucking boo-boo, and he ran to the fucking hospital. And so, it's just silly. Like, the whole thing is just silly. And obviously fake, because a guy like Trump talks about everything that happens to him, and he took a bullet in the ear, and he's not going to talk about it? Of course not. Because he's lying. Like, if he did that for reals, he would be talking about it all the time. He's so self-promotional, he's so braggadocious, all of it. Anyways, people should know by now, and if they don't know by now, they're never going to know. let's move on to this other stuff here. Okay, so I got away from doing this video. I went and started doing stuff outside, and ended up taking some of the fish from my little pond to the big pond, and I got the chicks outside, and I'm going to do an update on them probably the next video. We're going to move them now. We have a greenhouse outside that we're not really using for anything, and it's warm enough in there that they can, if you bring them outside earlier, they start growing more feathers and developing. They're just too big now for even the bigger bin that we have. And, I just was cooking dinner, making sloppy joes and French fries. We got an air fryer, which is wonderful. I never had success making French fries, but the air fryer does it great. I never use canola oil or any seed oil, so we have avocado oil and this whole thing. But I'm kind of wiped out here. I'm just going to do this one little bit here, and then I have a bunch of things on Twitter to get to. Some of them have to do with Israel. 3 of them have to do with Israel. And, let's get through this. This is abandoning him in record numbers, why independent voters are turning on Trump.
What was once a winning message for President Trump is now appears to be a growing liability. Harry, just stay here for a second. Okay. New polling shows independents are turning somewhat sour on President Trump's economic leadership right now with the rollout of his tariff agenda. And that's exactly what Harry Enton was doing, looking into the numbers to bring it to you. Okay, we're focusing in on independents on this one. Yes. So where does he stand with independents? Just kind of base.
Yeah, we'll focus in on independents here. And independents feel that Donald Trump has vacated.
What you got, coffee? What the?
The center of the electorate catering.
Having whiskey?
To his base. What are we talking about? Well, let's talk about
What are we talking about?
Overall net approval ratings. We're going to look at the worst ever at this point in a presidency. The old record among independents for the worst ever was Donald Trump back in 2016, a net approval rating of minus 16 points. Well,
2017.
Trump has broken his own record here. He now holds, in this particular term, the worst ever net approval rating at this point in a presidency among independents at, get this, minus 22 points. He is 22 points underwater with independents. That breaks the old record that belonged to Trump. He has set the new record. He is completely underwater with the center of the electorate, Kate Baldwin.
And this is overall. This is on all the issues. Now, focus in specifically on the economy.
Yeah, let's focus in on the economy, right? What is driving this overall approval rating for Donald Trump among independents to go underwater? Let's take a look.
Do that again. Look at this guy. Look at Harry. Watch him.
The economy, right? What is driving this overall approval rating for Donald Trump among independents to go underwater? Let's take a look at the economy. And let's take a look at Trump's net approval rating on it and look at the trend line over just the last few months. You go back to January, he was slightly above water with independents at plus 1 point. Look at this drop, Kate. Oh, my.
Oh, my God. Look at the...
Minus 29.
Okay, so you got this guy's... This goes on for 10 minutes. But, I want to say one thing about this. That when you think about Elon Musk and Trump, and I should cover this specifically in a intro to a video. You'll see this. I should repeat this at some point, and maybe I will, maybe I won't. But probably, at some point in the 6 months from now, I will. When you think about Elon Musk and Trump and RFK Jr. and some of these other people, they are posers. And they are, they're poser truthers and poser Republicans. I mean, not only are they poser truthers, but they're poser Republicans. And you think, well, at least they're saying things that are on our side, which is, they might throw you a few crumbs. Posers will throw you a few crumbs because they lie to you and they kind of will keep you around so you don't turn on them or whatever it is. They don't want you to go savage on them. So they'll throw you a few crumbs. And, all politicians are posers. I mean, the Democrats are not really Democrats. I mean, they're all, they say things that they don't believe in and they take positions that they have the opposite in their own belief system and the people that handle them have the opposite position, right? And so, it's all fraud. But Trump and Elon Musk and these guys and many of his people seem to be at least truther adjacent or truther friendly, which would be okay because you get a little bit, right? It'd be a little bit better. Certainly, initially censorship was better, but now it's much worse. They're just censoring different people. Trump is much worse on censorship than even Biden was. It's just that they're censoring different people, different groups, so it doesn't, it's not us this time. But still, that's not good because censorship in any form, as long as it's allowed, it's a violation of the First Amendment, and it's the fundamental defense against tyranny. Once you can't speak the truth and they make you knuckle under to their reality, then you're fucked. And that's what Trump has done here. And that's where he's going for it. And so, a lot of people voted for Trump who were truthers just because they thought Kamala Harris was such a nightmare, Joe Biden, and Trump was raising real issues. I mean, certainly the gender stuff was good on his part. He actually, followed through on some of that. He's done some things that, would make truthers happy, all of us happy to some extent. But the other stuff that he's doing is so fucking egregious, it wipes all that stuff out. Because a truther, someone who's a truther seeks the truth. And Trump's never been that. Trump is he's the opposite of a truther. I mean, these guys are all liars, these politicians, but they have like a boundaries and a framework and a bandwidth in which they're allowed to lie. And there's some lies they can't tell, and there's some area, they can't go into some areas and some areas of reality and bullshit about those things, right? And there's some sense of like boundaries to all their bullshit and all the things that they're able to say, and Trump doesn't have any of those. And Trump is, he just makes shit up, like, oh, they're eating the dogs. And it doesn't matter if he gets called on anymore because his supporters will support him, and he doesn't even give a shit either way, right? And so we'll see if he actually cares about losing political capital. Because if he doesn't, then it's going to be a full-out dictatorship, and then it's going to be like a coup, and so where the American people, 80% of the American people or more will be against him, there'll be chaos in the streets, and he'll just be like, fuck you, we're not, and I'm a dictator now, right? Now let's go to these Twitter things. So I usually just put the YouTube videos I have to cover first. And then sometimes I'll pull one and I'll have the Twitter things I have that people send me, Instagram things, and they're all organized in that fashion. But sometimes I have to mix and match them. But I haven't been doing that lately. And so I have 5 of these I just got to get through. And they're kind of random, but there's some stuff to do with Israel that ties to what I was saying earlier. So these hippies, girl with green hair there, this dude here, the Fight Oligarchy Tour. Now this is the opposition to Trump becoming an oligarch, right? Bernie fucking Sanders and this bimbo.
Donald Trump is a criminal who was found guilty of 34 felony counts of fraud.
So I think she's trying to have an accent there. I talked about Kamala Harris's weird, her weird cadence. And hers is it's just baffling.
Liable for sexual abuse.
Liable for sexual abuse.
Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too. Two?
That's what
Two? Market
Two? I could do that all day. I could literally do that for an hour. I mean, no one would be watching, but I could just keep on mocking her saying, two?
The stock market too.
Two?
When he talks about rapists and criminals, he should look in the mirror.
Yeah, boom. Look in the mirror, motherfucker. Woo! Fox was saying that he could sue her.
Donald Trump.
Okay, so that's so fucking weird. I mean, that's why Trump is going to be able to do whatever he wants. Because these are your real opposition is her and Bernie Sanders. There's no opposition out there. Okay, so another thing about Donald Trump and all his people, especially RFK Jr., is that we're going to get into some stuff with Israel here, right? And Israel isn't the good guy, like in terms of them and the Palestinians. The Palestinians might not be the good guy, but they don't have an army. So they're incapable of inflicting any damage on Israel, any real damage. And so, this whole thing, I mean, we've talked about Hamas and them being an Israeli asset and all that bullshit. So, Trump is going along with a genocide. And, so many people are upset in the truth community who blame Israel and Jews for everything. Again, I'm not one of them. But there's, some truth to them being one of the power brokers and certainly having influence and not being one of the good guys. I'm talking about Israel and Zionists. And Zionists can also be evangelical Christians. And so, this should be a deal breaker for anybody who's a truther. His egregious what he's doing with Harvard and these other things. So I have these things that were sent to me. They're kind of random, but I'm just going to go through them. They're not in order. I have whatever.
Don't open this one. Not until Passover. That is so bad. Why are there yellow caps on this Coke, but on other Coca-Colas are regular caps? Why does this cap differ from all other caps? No cap.
No cap. The first time I heard that was from one of the Island Boys.
The reason is because this Coca-Cola has no corn syrup. Usually Coca-Colas have corn syrup, but this one is a special run that Coca-Cola does just for the Jewish people who celebrate Passover, and they put real sugar. And actually,
can we see the ingredients?
We should have this the whole entire year.
Can I see the ingredients? Let's see. What's inside?
Cane sugar and caramel color.
Nice.
So
they still have caramel color.
Basically, if Coca-Cola was going healthy, this is the way it would be. So for Passover, this is kosher for Passover, and a lot of people stock up on them. I'm not mentioning anything.
Some people don't even have this, but let's look at what the cap says. Kosher.
I know, it says kosher Pesach right here.
O-U-P.
Boom. So the Coke is, this still isn't healthy, but at least it's better with sugar than corn. I assume it's better with, I don't know. But either way, I don't drink any of this shit anyhow. But, look at Coke. Okay, so there used to be a Jewish guy or ex-Jewish guy or something. Or, I have these various groups I used to be part of on Facebook. Or not groups, but people who have a page. And there's a few Jewish people for Israelites for Palestinian peace or something. They're they're like the liberal people in Israel and Jewish Voices for Peace and things. And they would publish hardliner Israeli Zionist stuff, right? They'd show Palestinian kids getting abused. I think a lot of them got canceled by when the whole censorship hit on Facebook and, YouTube, whatever it was. I don't see these things. But there was a guy, he was he used to be Jewish, maybe he's Jewish, but he was calling out some of the bullshit things, right? I've talked about Britney Spears humping the pole, and then there was these guys humping the wall. I don't know if I have that meme. If I have a meme of it, I'll put it up. I don't think I do. But there's that Wailing Wall, and these guys go up to the Wailing Wall and hump it. They thrust their pelvis in. There's some significance to it, but it's fucking weird. And here, they do circumcisions and they put their mouths, the rabbi puts the mouths on the penis of the baby. And, it's just gross. Fucking, they have some weird shit. All religions do, but this is their weird shit. So this is some kind of ritualistic bullshit. He's humping something here. He's humping the scripture, whatever. Again, this is some of the stuff, all religions have weird shit in it. But, this is the other weird shit. And, it's not like the Muslims are just evil and Israeli religion and the Jewish religion and the Old Testament is a mess. And the way that God is presented, if I had a problem with that dogma, the Judeo-Christian dogma, and the Jewish part about it, it would be that God is misrepresented. Like the God that they present is a narcissistic sociopath that is, wants sacrifices and is constantly doing impulsive things, getting butt hurt. It's the most butt hurt God anywhere. He's always, putting wrath down on other people, destroy the Canaanites, punishing people, making Moses walk around the desert. I mean, so many bad shit, like just the whole thing. And so, it's just weird stuff here.
I don't understand why this isn't front page news every single day. So I was mowing my lawn today, right? And the left lever stopped levering. It wouldn't turn. So I asked ChatGPT. I've got a John Deere Z315E. The left lever won't turn left. And it said, check your air pressure. Boom, done. No problem. And then it said, hey, lift up your seat, send me a picture. I did. It said, look for your control arm linkage. I circled what I thought it was in the picture and said, is this it? Yeah, that's it. Okay, now follow it to the back of the mower. And it said this, is anything jammed in there? And I looked. A freaking rock, a perfectly sized rock jammed right up in there. And I sent a picture. Is that it? That's it. Take it out and you're good to go. Guys, this would have cost me, what, $300? And all the small engine guys are booked right now. It's springtime. I can't get anyone on the phone to fix this. ChatGPT is blowing my mind.
Yeah, okay, bro. That sounds good, and I'm sure you've seen, I use AI now because they get better answers. When Siri sucks. And so when Siri says, do you want to use ChatGPT on my phone? I always say yes. And I use the Gemini thing. The Sajmark system talks about all the evils of technology. All the problems with 5G and Wi-Fi and all that shit, electromagnetic pollution and how it affects your subtle bodies. And talks about all the things that we know that technology does and dividing the family. But it's here. Like the good thing about Sajmark is that whatever's here is, you have to deal with one way or another. That doesn't mean you indulge in it. You have to be wary of it, but you have to use the good part of it. And there's good things about technology, like making these videos and, doing the sittings and doing all those things. And, some of these solutions that you can get and the information that you now have access to that we never had before. And so there's great things about it, but of course, ultimately it's going to be our downfall. And so, we have to, everything should be, taken with a grain of salt, but, why not use the good part of it while it still lasts? Update. San Francisco has erected a statue of a demonic goddess, Erosreth, nude. That will be great visitors in front of the ferry building. Erosreth is a demon worshipped by Satanists in America. And there was this part about it here. They're up in there.
He's up in those cheeks. Oh, he's really oh my God. Yo. What the? Oh my.
So that happened. It's just, even if it isn't a demon god, I don't know, it could be some Christian bullshit thing. It's still weird as fuck. It's demonic. Look at it. Like, who the fuck would do that? How much do they pay for that thing, right? So it's not that demon goddess, at least in terms of their story. Of course, this is what right-wing Christians and these fucks do all the time, is they see something and they say, and maybe it looks like it, maybe it is it, but they're not the official story. But oftentimes it's not, corroborated. And they make it sound like it is. The Our Revolution statue of a nude woman in San Francisco installed at the Embarcadero Plaza was estimated to cost around $300,000. The cost covered the installation itself and was sponsored by the Sibib Brandy Foundation. Separate funding covered the unveiling party. So this, I don't know. It's just fucked. Who gives a shit? And so let me just clarify what I was just trying to say there. I went and ate dinner. I was getting tired. It's almost 7 o'clock, so I'm home alone. Everyone's working and doing late shit, so whatever it is. Um, so I moved the chicks over to our greenhouse. They're too big for their bin, and I got videos for that, all this stuff. And this thing with Christians, some Christians and Satan, you know, the real devil is the ego. So every person's a potential devil, or at least a potential demon. It's when your ego starts going against God's will, that's demonic. So we all engage in demonic behaviors. It's the ego versus the soul. You got to, you have this idea of like Homer Simpson had it, where they have a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. Well, that's really what it's all about. So, you have a potential devil inside of you, and you have a potential angel or, saint inside you. And it's just a matter of choice. I mean, it's a matter of what you're going to choose to go with your direction in your life. It's oftentimes not a clear choice in terms of people will sometimes choose the demon and sometimes choose the angel. Like everyone has their moments. But in terms of some being that was a higher developed soul, like an angel that rebelled against God, well, that's totally, that could totally be the case. As far as I know, there's whole worlds where they went south and the whole world is contaminated with demonic energy, and, it's just like that way until they get wiped out or whatever happens, right? They've gone to the dark side. And so, this idea, though, that Christians have of Satanism and people worshiping Satan, like this Church of Satan is something different. They kind of dress up like devils and, do shit. I mean, at least they did with Anton LaVey. But they really just don't believe in God. So this idea that there's a whole bunch of people out there worshiping Satan collectively, and they might do that, and I don't know what that means, and I don't know what that actually does and whatever it is, but mostly it's embracing the ego within and going against God's will willfully. And there's people who do that, who hate God or angry at God. There's maybe groups of those people. I'm sure there's groups of those people. But the way Christians characterize it is not accurate. And so, I played along with this. I mean, I used to, there was stuff that was, like, sometimes you'd see symbolism that was clearly satanic, and there's shit they put in there, and, I didn't know exactly what that meant, right? Were they just mocking Christians? Were they mocking God? Was it just some people do it as a joke? Whatever it is, right? But it isn't as widespread as the Christians lead you to believe, because everybody is on the demonic side of things. And that includes lots of Christians and lots of religious people. Most people are, their egos are running amok, and it's a battle to do something about your ego. And this isn't about being narcissistic and, self-centered or selfish. I mean, that's a part of it. Those are symptoms. But it's when you know that God wants you to do one thing, and actually it's really having a relationship with the divinity within you and your soul, and then listening to that inner voice and, having a clear relationship, not some diluted, made up bullshit thing, but have a real relationship with the divinity within you, and then obeying, your soul, which is not easy to do, right? Because your ego wants to do certain things, and your soul wants you to do something else, and it's a constant battle. And most people are just not conscious of that at all. Like, they're like, all right, this is a good thing, so I'll do a good thing. It's a superficial thing. It isn't like they're connected to the divinity within them. And so a lot of times they're faking to do good things. There are a lot of religious people that fake to be good people, but they're not really good people, because it's something that's, again, they're better than somebody indulging in evil consciously, but they are doing the right thing, but being disconnected and doing it just to perform and show everybody, hey, look, I'm a good Christian, or I'm a good religious person, or I'm just a good person. And they're not really. They don't want to do those things. And they're doing it just to perform for other people and to lie to themselves. So that's what I meant about this thing. People in this part of the truth community are constantly saying this is some satanic being and some demon, and maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just, or maybe it's unintentionally that, but they're not consciously thinking it's who you think it is. And, oftentimes they get the shit wrong. Like when they said the owl was Moloch, and Moloch's a bull. Alex Jones said the owl at Bohemian Grove, the owl is something else. Moloch is a fucking bull, right? And so a lot of times they don't even get the things. They're not accurate. And they just say whatever, is going to get views or whatever it is, right? And they're not, paying attention to the truth because, they want people to think that this is satanic and San Francisco is San Francisco. And so it just kind of fits, it tracks. And so they put shit up like this, but, they're being demonic by doing that because they're not, they're just making shit up, right? So, the caption for this was, America is now a weird cult, the cult of Trump. There's a bunch of Christian, it sounds like they got Christian rock, and she's painting Trump, and these people are like getting into it. Look, oh my God, look at them. They're all videotaped. This is some, like I said, Christian rock as she paints Trump like Trump is a part of Christianity. He's the opposite. Like he's fucking not a Christian. He doesn't even have a favorite Bible verse. He's never read the Bible, and she's got a cross there, right? So here's, so you see this cross on top of Mount Mordor, right? And fucking Lord of the Rings. Better, you can see it there better. So there's a cross there. Now they're trying to make this look like it's channeling, like she's connected to God and God's painting through her. And it's not the case, right? This is something she does over and over again. It's not art. It's not happening spontaneously. She could paint this thing, anytime she wanted to. And they're making it look like it's some great thing. And Trump is not a fucking Christian. I covered this in my last video. He doesn't know any Bible verses. He knows nothing about Christianity. He doesn't do any Christian things. He's clearly not a Christian. And he's not a Republican either. And he's not a truther. He can make you believe he is. And these people who are so desperate to have somebody like themselves and Trump make it sound like he is. But he's not. He's just this arrogant, fat ogre of a motherfucker, right? And just a liar and a piece of shit grifter. And these Christians are celebrating him like he's a saint. And God wants nothing to do with fucking these politics and all this other bullshit. So that's, whatever. So I think I recognize this dude. There was a guy who I listened to a long time ago. I think he was on Facebook or YouTube. And this is years ago. And this is a 10-year-old or this is 2 decades old, this video. But this guy, he was a Muslim, whatever, cleric or something. I forget what, they had a name for the guy. And he would say things that other Muslims didn't like. So he was sort of excluded. But he said that in the Quran, that it said if Jews are by themselves, that's, they're no problem for Muslims. If Christians are by themselves, they're no problem. But when Jews and Christians work together, that's what you have to watch out for. He had all these quotes and things. I don't know if it was bullshitting. He was kind of a compelling speaker. And, he said these various things and that were interesting about that part of the world. And, it looks like the same guy, but again, this is years and years ago, like 7 years ago, I saw this guy.
States have some very important work to do for Israel. I can identify tonight 2 very important things that the United States has to do for Israel. There are many more, but there's no need to do more than simply 2. In order for Israel to succeed the United States as a ruling state in the world, not only must the U.S. economy collapse and the U.S. dollar collapse, and when the U.S. dollar collapses, it brings down the whole world of paper money with it. And if you don't believe me, just wait. Just wait. Sure. Not only must the United States collapse its economy and its money, but in addition, Israel has to wage a big war, which even non-Muslim political analysts are now anticipating. A big war. Even Jews now within Israel, I'm getting emails, even Jews within Israel, Jewish academics who are up in opposition to the Sharon government, they are now understanding that there's something big about to happen. And they're warning the world about it. Of course, it's too late now. Israel has to wage this big war, which is already planned long ago. And the territory of the state of Israel will dramatically expand. And the Palestinian problem will be solved because they'll be exported out.
So I'm just throwing this out there, right? And like I said, all these religions have issues because religions end up being powerful materially, and then they become gatekeepers that are sealed, that block people's connection to divinity, and they become abusive and manipulative and all these things. I've talked about this extensively. And so, all these various power brokers around the world and all these people who seek leadership positions are deeply flawed and are looking for something in the material world that they really can't receive. And so I've covered this, so much. I talk about the divinity within you, all these things, right? But the reason I'm saying this is the Trumpers, you have Trump with his fucking big-ass diaper here and his maxi pad. He's in these memes and stuff, right? But Trump has showed over and over again he's not that guy that these people who love him believe he is. And, none of them are. They're all liars, but Trump has inspired people. People who hate him see through him, and they maybe demonize him more than he actually is. But based on what he's doing, I don't think anybody thought he was going to be like this. I think he's exceeded expectations for the left. It would be kind of funny and interesting, but, it's a shitty way to go down, right? I mean, we're going down anyways, but, Trump is the catalyst, and it's God's will and all the stuff I said earlier. But it's just a shitty way to go down. He's such a bozo. Idiocracy is in full bloom. And so, with that, it should be fairly obvious to everybody in the truth community, at the very least, that assassination attempt was fake as fuck, right? And every time he does something that shows you he's a scumbag, it demonstrates more that it's fake, right? Because, he's just not a person with any sort of morals or a moral compass or any of these things. Anyways, I'm starting to fade out here. Let's wrap this up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.